The case study, let's look at the methodology. We have some options related to research methods. Quantitative, which normally deals with how much, or qualitative, who, what, where, when, why, how. And we're going to work with the case study, which narrows it down further. It asks the questions of why or how. Now there is quantitative research or qualitative, and qualitative deals with phenomenon in a narrative fashion as opposed to numerically. And it identifies major schemes, broad concerns, it's rich, in-depth narratives, and usually a small sample, but it's not generalizable to the population at large. And so I have chosen the case study for you in our information governance class. It's going to give you experience with this case study, a qualitative method, and you can learn about research as a whole, and this will help you prepare for your dissertation. So it's a methodology to obtain an in-depth, rich study of a phenomenon or a bounded system. Case study research is where the subject is studied within its own context. They are real. They offer a chance to get a snapshot of real life, a rich and a thick picture. Yin points out that case studies are the perfect strategy for our how and our why questions. So our research question, we're striving for the how or the why question. They are the qualitative approach to research using words as data. Now you, the researcher, are the primary instrument for data collection and analysis, and we're looking for the words rather than the numbers to convey what the researcher has learned about the bounded system or the phenomenon. For your own research, you're going to be deciding about this methodology and justifying your decisions in your writing and supporting those decisions with sources. Now, the case study design is set up with 5 components according to Yin: the research question, which you've been working on, the propositions, the unit of analysis, the case, the data, and the interpretation of the data. Now, you've been working on the how or why question, and we're narrowing that down to one question. And it's a limited number of events or conditions and their relationships. To help you in that question, I suggest a literature review. Continue to take your topic and possible topics and visit an online library. Research journals looking for your topics and the kind of research that has been done. What kind of case studies have been done, and you want your case study to be contemporary and to advance the research in your field. Now, Yin suggests 3 stages. In the first, try to use the literature to narrow your interest to a key topic or 2. Don't worry about any specific research questions, but then in your second step, examine closely, even dissect a few key studies on the topic of research. Identify the questions in those few studies and whether they conclude with a new question or loose ends for future research. These may then stimulate your own thinking and imagination and find yourself articulating some potential research questions of your own. Then in the third stage, examine another set of studies on the same topic, reinforcing that research question that you are developing. Now, you are going to need data for your research question. This too will help you narrow your research question. You might interview people, review documents, review records, websites, or do a field observation. So you want to choose a research question that will give you some form of data. Now, the proposition is some proposal to help you narrow your topic. So make some type of assumption or hypothesis, some proposal that will help you increasingly narrow that research question. And capture something that you're interested in addressing to lead you to research to the appropriate method in the first place. These how and why questions may not sufficiently point you to what you really study. Force yourself to state some propositions to move in that right direction. Now, the unit of analysis is also called the case or the phenomenon. It also helps you narrow that scope. It might be a person, an organization, behavioral condition, an event, or some type of social phenomenon. So in your groups, you'll select a topic related to information governance, then narrow down that topic, maybe looking at a single organization or types of organizations. Maybe you'll have 2 or 3 organizations. Maybe you'll look at a condition or an event. How does your particular topic impact a single organization? Why does the topic influence that organization? You're looking for a relationship between an information governance concept and some type of unit of analysis. Your case could be an individual, a group of individuals, maybe IT students, or a group of instructors, a group of patients, a group of leaders, families, a department like an IT department, or a group of departments, an organization, 2 or 3 organizations, a program like disaster recovery efforts, or a group of programs, maybe ERP projects, or a movement like the growth of big data. You want to make a determination of how data is linked to the proposition. And then what kind of data will you need to prove or support your research question? Thinking about the data now, do you want to do an interview? Do you want to gather some type of documents or records? Will help you perfect your research question because all that data needs to go back to your research question. Then you will have criteria to interpret your findings, and you want to evaluate and analyze your data back again in regard to your research question. You will actually have a section in your final research paper called the research method. Now here's some characteristics and concepts of your case research method. Now your research method is the case study. This was predetermined for you. In your dissertation, it will not be predetermined for you. You will be making that selection, but in this class, I did predetermine your research method for you. These are the types of things that you will need to address in your research method section. Concise, it will need to be concise, it will need to be supported. You will need a rationale. You'll need to discuss your tools, your sample, your protocols, your timeline, and the limitations. Let's look at each one of these. To justify your research methodology, you're going to write some type of methodology or research method section in your final research paper. Note that throughout your paper, including in this particular section, it's not about the quantity of your words, it's about the quality of your words. Be concise. You need to be concise in your message. More pages, more words is not valued. It's the message you convey, not the number of words. And justify your research methodology, just like the rest of your paper, by supporting it with quality reference. Use quality references here to describe and support the case study methodology. Provide rationale for the case study methodology as well as for the data collection tools that you selected. For example, if you did decide to do interviews, you'll provide support for doing interviews. If you decide to look at documentation, provide support for looking at documentation. Your rationale is justification for the case study method as well as justification for your research, your individual research, and both need to be supported by references. Why is the case study a valid research method? Why is your particular case study a valid and quality study? Rationalize your answers, support those with quality references. Regarding tools, what kind of data collection tools are you going to use? And regarding tools, this is the archival records, the data collection, the interviews, the observation. Why are those tools the best choices for your particular study? And why are those tools good quality tools to support your writing with quality references? There again, this goes into that research method section of your final paper. Your sample population. We have the total population, and then you're going to choose a sample population, and there again in a case study, it's a very, very small sample. What's your sample population? How did you choose it? How did you narrow your research question? Justify that sample that you chose for your particular research. What is your protocol? Your protocol are those procedures that you used in your research. What procedures are you going to follow to conduct your research? Provide a step-by-step account from contacting individuals and organizations. How did you first contact them? To collecting the data, to maybe transcribing interviews, to entering data. How did you collect the data? How did you organize your data? To the time that you wrote the reports. What were your step-by-step procedures that you followed in your research? That's your protocol. What is your timeline? When did you collect data? When will you collect data? When will you analyze the data? And also address in your research methods section the limitations of your study. Now, this is limitations both of case studies at large as well as limitations of your particular research. Consider both researcher bias, the generalization of results, and the difficulty to replicate case studies. Case studies in general have limitations such as their inability to generalize to a greater population. You can write to the limitations of a case study in general, as well as to your own case study. Perhaps you were unable to secure a very large sample size. You had trouble getting data. Something like that you also write to in your case study. One limitation to case study research is that the quality of the research depends greatly on the individual researcher, because the research design, the type of questions, the research can inadvertently influence the results due to personal beliefs. That's called researcher bias. One way to address that is to discuss bias in your limitations section of your research methods in your paper. For that same reason, it's challenging for other researchers to repeat case studies because the research is so entwined with the individual researcher. It's hard to generalize results to a wider population or confirm the results of the original study. The scenarios and the populations are hard to replicate. So you can address limitations right there in your research method section of your research paper. So you will have in your paper a research method or method section within your paper. And it can include these items that we've talked about.